Alright, so this is the craziest thing ever. Accidental discovery back in 2007. I was using a styrofoam cup as an ashtray, and I was messing around with my magnets, so I had them in my lap. Bad idea, mind you. Bad idea to have a rotating magnetic vortex anywhere near anything that can be twisted. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, speaking of which, and what occurred was the ash in the cup stood up, straight up, was affected by the magnetic field, much like iron filings would be. So what I did is I took the same trilinar assembly, as you're all familiar with. It may be buried through my creative bullshit, but it's there, towards the bottom of the list, and soon to take back top priority. How to say this? Measurement from this point was 6. Oh, technically, it went from the 500 norm to 900 all the way up to 1000 from here. With the sensor placed here while this was in rotation, the magnetic array. Yeah, I'm horrible at giving things fancy names. I just say what they are. This is the premise of language. Anyway, I digress. Measurement here was 500 to 600. Peaked at just at 700, but that was the highest. Pretty much stayed between 500 to 600, but on the edge of 700. So. But this was all the way up to 1000. This was up to 1000. This was another. Same as here, same as here. So, the static field of these cups was acting as a magnetic amplifier. That actually lined up with a static field, just like that lines up with static field. I would do this I have the same arrangement downstairs, only a little bit more complicated, and they are all, I can come through and knock the top can off, and the whole lower part just stands still. So of course, the next thing to do was to see what happens when I add a fractal coil amplifier to the mix, and see what happens there at this point. Well, this is not the way it would go, because what I need to do is amplify from this point, and then of course test it on this. And I may have found basically this accidental discovery in how I'm transmitting the magnetic field wirelessly. These things may mean that I've tapped into the third dimension of electricity, because you have volts and amps and then magnetic fields. So if I'm processing magnetic fields primarily, that would mean that amps is 90 degrees, and then I would have to turn my equations to return them to what is already known and understood. This is primarily what I'm doing, is bridging these mathematics, because I have my own systems and mathematical counting based on these fields in the first place. So the math is actually based on the tangible, the actual object. So it can be scaled up and down, would be the best silver lining of this. So yeah, it may look like things like this when you properly align the lower field. That could actually be bending it. And of course, aluminum substrate with those magnetic fields. Great kind of a quantum entanglement thing going on here between the electrons. So that most would think, but once again, we're dealing with quantum field that is then connecting particle particle. Volts, amps, magnetic field. So that's why I get pulse ampage from one measurement field and pulse voltage from another. And that's with the copper array. So yes, with the copper array around this, you should see amplification occurring, perhaps even conversion from magnetic to volts or magnetic to amps. And that's what is occurring. It's like flipping Einstein's equation algebraically. Everyone knows E equals mc squared. Well, if I want to solve for m, then I would have to take E and divide it by c squared, effectively, or the square root of such, something like that, or the square root of the whole fucking thing of E. Yeah, technically that would be it, because to find m, then I would have to go with the square root of E divided by c squared. And that would be mass. So this is just Ohm's law. So E equals I times R, where I is amps and R is just resistance or friction, and amps is pressure, and E equals substance. So SP F SPF. Don't forget your sunscreen. So yeah, that would also mean that the same magnetic field can be transferred directly to this aluminum. And then, just for kicks, add a glass water jar here. Then freeze it and view it under microscope. We can do distilled water or iron within that distilled water to see. Perhaps, with this being statical, we could do ash within the water and see what happens. Carbon. So that's, understand that this premise it means that materials that we thought had no electrical use do have electrical use, and actual atomic structuring can be used to build circuits. Guided by these concepts. These are all proofing concepts. This, the trilinear arrangement here, I'm just showing one arrangement that functions. But anyway, that is all for the science moment of the day. So everyone get real. It's realer than you know. Because if you think you know, you could be wrong.